Welcome, everyone. It is, what day is it today? Today is the 8th of January, 2025. And this is the first of coffee chats sponsored by Genealogy for Asian Canadians and the BC Genealogical Society. We have a few new people joining us, and so I'll just go over what this actually is. Coffee chats are meant to be more casual. I may or may not record them depending on just how prepared I am before I get to them. Sometimes it'll just be a forum on what everyone's working on and a chance for you to ask the group and me about whatever you're working on. And not to say that I will be able to answer every question, but certainly with a group, we have a better chance of getting answers, specific answers for you. The schedule, as I have it set up, is pinned in Genealogy for Asian Canadians at the top of the group. There are 11 sessions currently planned for 2025, not including December. And this will change depending on my schedule and whether I'm going to be able to get in front of a camera for the entire year. Each topic, I will pick a theme. And if the theme is no theme, it will be potpourri or, whatever it happens. Generally, the structure is I will do some talking for, 20, 30 minutes about the theme. And then after that, the rest of the hour will be an invitation for anyone in the group to ask and answer questions. That part will not be recorded, so please feel free to bring up anything that you're working on.
Please try again. On a scale of 1 to 5, how satisfied?
Thank you. Genealogy for Asian Canadians is now about 600, it's 610 members as of this morning. It's been great to foster this group, which is specifically about genealogy. It's not that culture and history are not important, it's that there are other groups that bring that in, and I wanted something that was really going to be about the abstruse bits and pieces of laws, regulations, how they create records, how to use those records to find us, our family. So it's been going since 2018. Wow, that's it'll be 7 years. Holy cow. The BC Genealogical Society, in case you haven't had a chance to visit, is one of the stronger genealogy societies in Canada. And part of that is because they actually have a freestanding, they own it library. That's amazing. So the Genealogy Society is in Surrey. They offer free consults. Check out their website to connect with them. They'll do lookups, for example, for records. Lots of people, for example, look for things like birth, marriage, and death records that only have an index on the BC genealogy website. Those films, the Genealogy Society has in their Surrey library and can do lookups. There might be a minor fee, but it's still cheaper than you traveling to BC or paying the $30 plus tax to the BC Archives. All right. So today we are going to talk about the new Ancestry collection, Canadian Pacific Steamship Company records. I did a blog post about this topic, but as we all know, it's one thing to talk about a thing and it's another thing to see a thing, and that's what we get to do today. I'm going to talk about where they originally came from, and then who owned them after that, and now how can you access them in real life. Then we're going to talk about navigating them, which is usually the big hurdle that people have when they're researching. Then it should be self-evident as we talk, why get into this and what's in it for your research. And where else can you look for similar information or information that will either bring you to this database or this database will create questions that you might want to answer elsewhere. So we'll cover that. So the title is called Canadian Pacific Steamship Company Records, 1897 to 1981. It was a 2-year project to digitize and then index this collection. then quality control. It was done by Ancestry, and it was released in June 2024. So I'm a little late in talking about this. The original paper collection has been known to researchers for quite some time. The original records are held at the Ingenium Center. And if you aren't familiar with what Ingenium means, because I certainly wasn't, Ingenium is a collection of 3 museums and archives that are located in Ottawa. They are the Canadian Science and Tech Museum, the Canadian Aviation and Space Museum, and the Canada Agriculture and Food Museum. The Ingenium Center, which is where one of the 2 main archives are, is a standalone place. And as with any archive, especially if you're going to travel, I highly recommend, first of all, that you contact them to just be sure that they are open, that they're expecting you. And then, honestly, always ask them to have the materials ready for you to look at. That will save so much time because our archive time is very precious. So if you email them, you can confirm your dates and times, you can get all your materials pulled for you, they'll be ready as soon as you arrive. The other place you can find these records is on Ancestry. Yes, there's only 2 places. You can see them in real life in Ottawa, or you can see them on Ancestry. This collection is not available anywhere else. And if you're thinking, well, Ancestry, do I have to get a subscription? No, actually, you can go to a genealogy society, you can go to a family search affiliate library, or you can go to the library, probably in your hometown, and ask if they have an Ancestry library collection. So those are several different places to get to see subscription services for genealogy. So these records. See, it's multi-layered when we talk about records and where they come from. And the reason why any genealogist or historian wants to know where the records came from is to assess the veracity or truth of the records and the information that you're getting. Like, basically, how true is this stuff? Because not every record, just because it's historic, is true. And we need to sort of handicap, the truthiness, as Stephen Colbert used to say, about records. So these records came from the Canadian Pacific Railway Company. It was founded in 1881. Let's see. Let me just check my notes here. So the CPR, we often think about as only being the railway, but we hugely underestimate the CP's significance. Canadian Pacific either owned then or currently owns now pretty much everything: airlines, hotels, land, leases, and ships, and much, much more. I just don't want to talk, I'll spend all my time talking about what CP owns. In this talk, we're talking about the Canadian Pacific Railway Steamships records, which effectively were created from 1883. So like the earliest records, sorry, is it 1880s? And so the earliest records in this collection were collected by the CPR or CPSS. Later, the CPSS became Canadian Pacific Ocean Services Limited in 1921. And then later, CP Ships began in 1969 as an independent subsidiary of Canadian Pacific Limited. However, CP Limited broke up in 2001, 120 years after it was founded. The reason why I'm really pedantic about the names and the entities of who created the records is that when you are looking at the records yourself and you're a little bit confused as to whether or not it's a CPSS or CPS or CP Ships, these are the various iterations in the corporation. So you'll have an idea of which entity created them. When we look at the Ancestry database, we'll be searching by name. And the thing is, with every database that we search, it doesn't matter where it is. It could be the Internet Archive, it could be Family Search, Ancestry, it could be Library and Archives Canada. each one of them has its own peculiarities about researching. None of them are Google, okay? None. And when we bring kind of a Google mindset, Google is, and others, I'm not saying Google's the only thing, but I feel like today in 2025, we expect all research sites to function like Google. You should be able to type any keyword in, you should get any result on any page. The entire page should be digitized in OCR, and it should rank it in terms of relevancy and your search question immediately. Like all of that work and thinking is invisible to most of us. And Ancestry and every other database does not work like that. So you have to kind of understand how it works in order to see why sometimes searches don't work for you. In Ancestry's case, the focus I can see is searching by name for passenger lists. So the main page you'll see is search by name. And then there will also be searching by captains and crew. Not all crew, but there is a section on the captains, which is pretty cool if you're looking for a captain. It is mainly by collection and year, and that's because it is a reflection of the original records and the way that they were organized. There is no Boolean search. In other words, you can't say and or. The asterisk function is pretty limited, and it's inconsistently digitized. So I will hope to show you what I am talking about. Okay, so now I don't think we need my slides anymore. Let's go to the collection. So this is it, the Canadian Pacific Steamship Company records. But let's just say that you didn't start here on this page. Because, why would you? The easiest way to navigate Ancestry is to go to the search bar, I find. And you can search by card catalog. That's what I always do. And then under keyword, something that might narrow down, the unique word that might narrow down. Canada won't do it. Try steamships. Oops, or steamship. By that example, you can see if I'm a letter off, my keyword might not come up. Here's the records right here. There's 289,555 images to search. So one of the reasons why I am talking about this collection is that this is a major addition to what's available online. Major. Like some of the information here is kind of breathtaking in terms of what's available and what we're used to. But before we hop into that, as I mentioned earlier, Ancestry has a specific way of searching. And so it's predominantly based on name searches like this. And so these keywords and vessels and etc., those are less effective. So just because, say, you are looking for a particular name and ship doesn't mean that in your first search you get a 0 result. It may not come up. So I'm going to use something super simple and say, are there any Jones in this collection? I've got a whole bunch of results, 2,000 results. And yes, the answer is this is a record from this collection. Gladys Jones, 53, from Renfrew Street, Vancouver. Okay, so that's the first way that you can search an ancestry, is by name. A second way that you may be able to search an ancestry is, actually, I'm going to leave Jones, is by vessel. And so let's just say that your person was named Jones and you think they came in on the Empress of Asia. In this case, this is quite interesting because of pulling from a different record, but there's like, as we just saw, 290,000 records. And so this is a quick and easy way of not only looking for if whatever record might be for your person, it's much faster than going through it one by one. And if you don't have a lot of information about your ancestors' travels, this is like a super fast, fun, easy way of searching. In this case, I'm just going to look at this one. This is Archdeacon Jones, who departed in 1959 from Montreal aboard the Empress of England. Actually, that's not the Empress of Asia, but whatever. Arrived at Liverpool via Greenock, or however you pronounce that. Let's have a look. Holy cow. Are there ever a lot of lists? I've spent about 10 hours looking at this collection, but I have not actually seen this particular page, which is to say it's time consuming to get to know each collection. Oh yeah, here's the J section. We were looking for Archdeacon Jones. There he is, Archdeacon Jones from London, Ontario. So that's the second way. You can narrow by name and by vessel. Now, let's just say that you are looking for any and all information about a CP ship that you are researching. You may not get the result that you're looking for. I know, for example, that the Beaver, there are some records for the very early Beaver, which is not a CP ship. It was an HBC ship. But anyway, I know it has Beaver records, so I decided to search for Beaver, and nothing, no results. You might be forgiven for thinking, oh, well, then this collection has nothing for Beaver, but that's not true. It's because the indexing is not comprehensive. Let's put it that way. Okay, so the third way, and much more time consuming, but actually for me, the only way I can really wrap my head around a collection is to poke around in it. So now we're going to start poking. Under record group, you'll see all the categories. There are a lot of categories. There's crew lists, passenger lists, regulations, journals, the yeah, not quite spelled right, and miscellaneous records. That's always really useful, right? Miscellaneous records, because who even knows what's in that? Named ships, programs, promotional artwork, schedules, fares, officers, and voyage reports. So this is why it took hours and hours for me to go through all of these, because I wanted to know what was in each one. So let's start with crew passenger lists. And this is where I think the collection really comes into its own, because while the name search function will probably get you a person who was on the crew passenger list, look at the range of years. In Canada, we are only used to seeing passenger lists up to 1935, I think. And depending on the provider, it could be as short as the 1920s. In this collection, we have crew or passenger lists way beyond there. Here's 35. We have 36, 38, blah, 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 all the way down to 1981. 1981. These are probably living people. So this just blew me away when I saw this. And then I just started poking around as to what was possibly in 1981. So what happens is if you choose the category, the record group, the year, and then in this case, there is only one, is the Princess Patricia Alaska Cruise. But still, we would never normally expect to see this. And there you are. There's the passenger list for a 1981 passenger. Like, I'm sorry, but it's so surprising to me, a Canadian researcher who's used to Canadian privacy laws. So that's the crew or passenger list. Journals, logs, and ship movement books are pretty fascinating when you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of your ancestors' voyage from A to B. And combined with the voyage reports, you can get a really deep look at life as they lived it. And since I think as genealogists, what we want to know is a lot more about what was life like for our ancestors? What was it really like? Like beyond the facts, who were they? What happened to them? And it's stuff like this that's a little bit harder to find because you have to dig a little bit and you have to kind of follow the breadcrumbs through. But these two collections, journals, logs, and ship movements and voyage reports together give you a bigger picture. So just journals, logs, and ship movements are usually written by the captain. And so it's like the captain's log. Sorry, I just got a flash of Star Trek there. And captain's log. And so it's a notation for the captain about what they thought about the ship. The voyage reports include the medical reports and the purser reports. And honestly, I found both of those pretty fascinating. Like all the accidents and things that happen on a ship, like so the accidents are covered by the medical officer or team or nurse on board, and the purser reports are things like, Mrs. Jones lost her diamond necklace and we all looked for it, or stuff like that. Like this is detail that we would never normally see. So let's look at them. In journals, logs, and ship movements, we have again a huge range of years. And so just because I wrote about it and therefore I know these, so forgive me for going over what I searched for in December. In 1913, we have, for example, the logbooks for the BC Coast Service, and we have logbooks for Montreal. So it's not comprehensive. Not every logbook ever created by CP is here. We've got a ship movement book in 1913. Here's the Canadian Pacific Railway logbook for the BC Coastal Service. See, that's something else. When we think of CP steamship records, we tend to think of only the really big ocean liners. We think about the big ocean liners that like originally our ancestors used from wherever it was, not necessarily China, to Canada. And these records contain internal ships, Great Lakes ships, coastal service ships, and not only Canadian Pacific Steamship created records, but also like any corporation, these are business records. They're created by a corporation to kind of monitor business and movement for, all of their competitors. So you will also see records for example, the Allen Line, which was not owned by CP. It was CP, keeping an eye on their competitors. We've got, CP steamship lines, uh, the coastal lines, 1917. We're in the war at this point, 18 through 20, 19, coastal service, 1920. And now I'm going to skip forward to post-war. Let's go to 1940. Let's go to when exclusion was repealed in 1947. Movement books, 47 through 51. We've got the Beaver Cove. I don't actually know what ship that is. We've got Liverpool to Quebec and Montreal. We've got the Empress of Scotland, Coastal Services CP. So my advice, if I was researching a particular ancestor, is the year is going to be the key figure that you want. You want to know what year they came in, and then you want to see if that year and that ship is represented here in the journals. So if you'll forgive me, I'm going to skip down to voyage reports because I mentioned that first. And so that's kind of where my head is at. Same thing, record group first and then year. And then in this case, you choose from whatever's available. It only starts in 1916. So I'm going to skip forward to, again, 1947. See what we've got for voyage reports. The Beaver Glen. We've got copious reports for the Beaver Glen. We've got the Empress of Canada. And we've got the first post-war voyage for Quebec and Montreal. Another thing that these records have is that is unique to Canadian research, or at least in my experience, is we have outbound records. We have the entire ship. It's not just as what we are used to is Canada didn't keep outbound records. But when we think that way, we're thinking what the Canadian government kept. This is not the Canadian government. This is a corporation. And a corporation keeps different sets of records. And in this case, this collection contains not only inbound records, which is what we're used to, but also who left the country and when they left. The voyage reports, when I was researching them, are generally inbound and outbound. So let's have a look at that because you will find this really interesting. So here's a voyage report. And here's the whole page. In this case, it is the Empress of Canada, voyage number 146, sailing from Liverpool on the 8th of October, 1947 at 5:33 in the evening, arriving at Quebec, 15th October, 1947 on Wednesday, oh yeah, of course. And then homeward. So outbound, inbound, outbound, inbound. You will get information that you can usually see. Sorry about the flinging back and forth. If you're used to looking at passenger lists, usually in a passenger list, if they're complete, you'll see the first page. It has a lot of great information, like, where it set sail from Yokohama and what day, how many, and then what day it docked at its first port. This is similar information. So it repeats those Canadian passenger lists. But remember, those Canadian passenger lists that we're looking at, we're used to are government records. These are corporate records. So they contain similar information, similar matching information. Which is to say, this is a great supplement to passenger list work that we've done before. So here's westbound information, eastbound information, and what else have we gotten? Voyage reports. Those. The ice report. Sorry, I'm just having a little challenge here, making it just the one large page. Okay, where they stowed the cargo and what was in the cargo. This is the staff, who was on staff. Oh yeah, here we go. So before I mentioned we had medical reports. This is what I mean. So in 1947, the westbound, so in other words, out to the UK, the surgeon starts off with how everyone is doing. And then he talks about who got sick and what happened to them. So apparently Mrs. Victoria Dan got bronchitis and stayed in hospital for the entirety of the voyage. Mr. Leslie Stevens came up with angioneurotic edema of the face and neck. I don't actually know what that is. Then he developed appendicitis, the poor man, and was landed at Quebec at the hospital. Whew. And then there were accidents. Mrs. Colburn slipped and fell in the kitchens and strained her left leg. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh. I'm just not used to this level of detail. Similarly, on the eastbound trip, sorry, I misspoke earlier. The first one was to Quebec, the second one's outbound. Mrs. Calver, holy cow, was apparently a psychiatric patient who was being transported in cabin C-47. Mrs. O'Reilly had a concussion. So there's the medical report. Even if this medical report doesn't mention your particular person, again, color and detail. In my blog, if you get a chance to read it, you'll see that the particular voyage that I chose uh, to feature these logs and records, it was a really difficult voyage. Like there were like the seas were incredibly rough. People were being flung from hither and thither. Dancing was canceled. One person sustained broken ribs when they were thrown against the railing. And it's these reports that give that kind of color in life, which even though none of them were talking about the people that I was looking into, it still gives a very good picture of just how rough the voyage actually was. Okay, so here's the purser's report. So again, the purser is in charge of what happens to the passengers, and the previous one was the medical report. It'll have similar information, but from a different perspective, which is again a really great way of reading history. So we've got accommodations, we have some minor plumbing defects. There was mass in the lounge on Sunday and communion. There were several accidents. Yeah, so there's that accident that's being reported again. Immigration, these are notes about how immigration was conducted. And there's a note about the deck chairs. In my blog post, I noticed that the seas were so rough that the deck chairs were literally pulled from their chains. So that gives you an indication of rough. Like I wouldn't even survive. What else have we got here? We've got a statement of loss where Mrs. Flynn, I'm just reading this quickly, fallen from necklace, apparently lost her amethyst pendant, one of three attached to the necklace on the voyage. Okay, so that's enough about this particular report. I just want to show you uh, how to navigate this and what's in it and why you might be interested. In terms of named ships, in terms of named ships, I was really interested to see that it went back as far as 1836, way before Confederation. And in 1836, we have the Beaver, as I mentioned, the HBC ship. It's not a lot. It's just a picture, but still, like here's an alternate way to look for any ship, not just CP ships. The frustrating part about this section is that you have to go by year. And so I personally would navigate this way. So I'm going to show you something that maybe you're not as familiar with. You can navigate within a collection. All this time I've been navigating from its base page, but you can go from here. It's the same thing. The record group is here, the years are here, and here are the titles. So instead of flicking back and forth and clicking, you can go here and go to 1855, and it's only the Alberta. In 1880, we've got the Tai Nui. I'm just looking for one that has more than one. 1880 to 1914, we have the Parisian, the Algoma, the Alberta, the Emily. Okay, come on. All right, whatever. Occasionally you'll see up in here that there'll be one or two choices so you can click down. But anyway, you get the idea. These are lakes. These are lake ships. And lots of information about ships that plied the lakes and the rivers. Again, when we think about steamship records, we tend to think about ocean only. And these, at least this collection, also includes information about ships in all of Canada's waterways. Oh, let's see. Schedules and fares, I found, I'm not going to go through each one of these. I find them to be like named ships was my favorite thing. Programs is, menus. If There might be a menu. That's of less interest to me. But, if I was searching for a particular ship, I definitely would look to see if the menu of the food that was offered was here in this collection, because that would be really cool to know. Promotional artwork. Yeah, it's really just CP artwork and the artists that they um, hired to advertise and market their services around the world, which I found a little bit problematic because, well, imagine you've got a hugely colonial company trying to sell exotic destinations to white colonial passengers mainly. You can imagine what the artwork looks like. And I found some of it a little. So, anyway, have a look there if you wish. Let's skip to schedules and fares. This is where I really thought this collection was fantastic because what did our ancestor actually pay for their fare? Uh, we've got Canada since Confederation. Okay, this first one isn't hugely deep. Yeah, that's a menu. Yeah, it's not much. So if you'll forgive me, I'm going to stay in the collection now and I'm going to look at different years. Schedules and fares. Really, like peak immigration is like 1901 to 95. This is the island of Iraq. 1903. Here's the annotated timetable. Here's houseboating. You really have to poke around and look for what you're looking for. And in my case, I was looking for uh, Empress line fares. 1907 to 10, 1908. There's the Allen line. Let's have a look at this one. This is 1908. Europe, Japan. There's 60 pages in this one. There's the ship. Oh, yeah. So this looks like the agent's book. Conditions of passage. Here are the railways. Here's the fare in first and second class. So yeah, this is definitely a lot of background information on what would have been available for the crossing the continent in 1908. Remember, the CP Railway was completed in 1885, so that was possible. Let's see, baggage. So like these are rules and regs for passengers. Here's some information about the three empresses, India, Japan, and China. Oh, sorry, I realize I've been talking for quite a long time here, and I promised that I would give everyone a chance to ask me questions. So I'm going to wrap up. I won't get a chance to talk about the other collections, but there's this one, for example, passenger lists. Oh, actually, I'll do this very quickly. You can find passenger lists also at LAC. They are not the same as these, but there are 9 different passenger lists that you can find by looking at A to Z research tools in Library and Archives Canada. Just type in PASS and they'll all come up. Similarly, Family Search, which is free, is available and can be searched by name. It only goes 1881 to 1922 though. And it looks like this. Another reason why you might want to look for the same record, whether it's LAC, Ancestry, or Family Search, is that they don't actually all have the same images. They don't. They don't share the same images. They did their own imaging separately, and sometimes when you can't read something in one platform, go to a different platform and you'll be able to find it. Okay, so that's CP records for January. I will stop recording and invite you to turn on your cameras and